Welcome to the Football Podcast. This is your host, Mr. NumberNIne.
And this is The Fool.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Football Podcast. I hope you've all been safe and taking care of yourselves in these perilous times. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about because a lot has happened since our previous podcast.
Yeah, a lot has happened since the previous podcast. Europe nearly self-destructed and now it's all back together again. Mostly.
It's basically Humpty Dumpty, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's already fallen off the wall and UEFA called in all the men and for some reason also all the horses because, that will help.
Definitely helps.
And then you go in and they've gone in and not quite been able to put it back together again.
Well, they plastered it up and pretended it's okay. But yeah, the cracks are still there.
Oh, for sure. This is not surprising. We've had a podcast about how we think a European Super League would work because we know that that's what the big clubs want and that's where the money is. Now, I will point out my biases towards this. My main issue with the European Super League is that it was a closed system.
Yeah. Same.
I don't think it needs to be as radical a change as what I proposed as for a European Super League. If creating a continental pyramid, which would supported by smaller pyramids nationally.
Even though that would be super awesome if that happened.
I think it would be the closest we could have to the system now, but like more competition for the top clubs. Like with the ESL, at least I get with your thing. Like if there is a ESL that exists with all the top clubs, Roman Abramovich doesn't care about winning the Champions League anymore. He wants to win the shiny thing, and that's with Sheikh Mansour as well. So I get why they left. They wouldn't start it because they're like, we're happy because we're in the business for the prestige, not for the not for the money.
Yeah, we've got all the money anyway.
Like football is nice, but oil.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Hydrocarbons.
That's where the real money is.
Like football's like a means to an end. It's not the end.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously the American-owned clubs are not like that.
No.
And Spurs and Arsenal are just like, you invited us?
Yeah, we counted the big
well,
six.
Arsenal there were like one of the Americans going to go. Spurs were probably like, you're inviting us? We thought we were just like not one of the cool kids. Like, yeah, you're one of us. Like, come on, man. Like,
Spurs were just like, we're one of the big six. Just nobody say anything. Just stand in the party. It's okay. Pretend we're here.
Like, to be fair, Spurs have actually justified it by making the Champions League final a couple of years ago, and like, even if they've not won a trophy, but like, Arsenal like hasn't qualified for Champions League in a couple of years, and like it's not going to finish in the top four. You're like, okay.
Arsenal's like
so basically the big clubs of Europe and Arsenal and Spurs.
Yeah, exactly.
For that matter, AC Milan hasn't been like a top club in ages. Like, I'm not questioning their pedigree.
Yeah.
Like AC Milan, at least you can go. They're the second most successful club in, European football. So you can't not have a club that's won this trophy 7 times in the competition. That's like, I think once you've won the competition at least 3, if you've won it 3 times, you're in the club. There's like a club of like, we'll pick you because you've won it 3 times. Like if Nottingham Forest had won 1 more, they would have been like, even though you're League 2, you've got an invite somehow.
Somehow. That's where the legacy clubs idea sort of fits well. Like, you've actually got a history in the competition and you've won it and stuff. So you get to be legacy, and it's
like, to be fair, that is one area in England where they didn't have a club. Like they've got Liverpool, they've got Manchester, the North, and they've got the London clubs, but they didn't have like a Midlands club, like from the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Like either Villa or Forest had that pedigree. Like Forest has won the European Cup twice, back to back even, and like the Aston Villa's won it. So those 2 clubs, like combined, have the legacy of like a club. like
Yeah.
of a big club. Like, okay, Juve, Inter, AC Milan, don't need to. They've all won it at least 3 times, if not more.
Okay.
I don't know if AC Milan has won a European cup, but I get the feeling they've won enough in Europe. Like, they've won enough Europa Cups, and
Yeah.
like if because they said they needed 3 other founders. It would not have surprised me if one of those founders would have ended up being Sevilla, because they're like always winning the Europa League. I don't think any club from the German league would have gone, and probably just needed 2 more. It would probably be 2 more English clubs. Like, that's why that's why I think Everton had to like very vehemently go, no, we don't want this. We totally wouldn't take it, and like secretly like, how dare you didn't ask us in the first round?
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, I just had a quick like Ajax probably is actually the other club that would have been invited. They've won 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Ajax have won at least 4 Champions Leagues, and they've got a proud European record.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe the Portuguese big 2 in Ajax and Sevilla. Those are amongst the 4 you'd think would be looked at, because like Porto and Benfica are both like, they've won it twice and they've been to the finals multiple times.
Yeah.
And Ajax have won it heaps. Like, it almost is like, if you're doing the legacy thing, you kind of need Ajax in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's why my league system worked. Ajax is in that top 20. Ironically, because of legacy. But they'd be in the top division, and they'd probably be really competitive because they'd have a lot of money. Like, I think they might be struggling against relegation for a year or 2, but like if they survived, then they just go in, and they'd go in with like their youth system getting in this, so they can actually pay players, so they don't have to sell them.
Yeah.
And they've got the biggest network of expert people to bring in as coaches and like, scouts and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the 2 big Portuguese club would be the same. Like, if you had Ajax and the 2 big Portuguese clubs, as opposed to Sevilla, they would, because they just have, the Portuguese clubs are just so good at the scouting thing, because they're the 6th. Yeah. I think Portugal is the big 6, is the 6th after the big top 5. I think the Portuguese league is considered the 6th best in Europe, and then 7th is Ajax, or it might be 7th is Russia, and then
the Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah, see, country coefficients for current ranking, like just looking at the club ones, England is number 1, no surprises there. Like another back-to-back double, double. Well,
not quite back.
Yeah, like another all-English final.
Yeah.
And like, I think after Real Madrid, they're like, England, if you don't, are generally the most successful country in the European state, and then Italy are 3rd, which makes sense because Juve's been to a final.
Yeah. I was a little surprised they're ahead of Germany.
Because you remember, Borussia Dortmund don't do anything really, and like in Europe, like to be fair though, they made 1 final, didn't they? Because Bayern's won. Yeah, and Bayern has won 2 finals this decade, like from memory that I can think of. Because Chelsea's won 1 and Liverpool's won 1, and like in the previous decade, 2010s, I'm saying. But if you're counting from 2012, Chelsea won 2012, and then you've got Bayern. There was an all-German final. There was an all-Spanish final. But Italy, like Juve, has consistently made the finals, even if they haven't won.
Yeah. Well, Juve as well. Well, they made 2 finals.
Yeah, they've made 2 finals. And I think the clubs generally make the quarters and semis, like they make the knockouts.
Yeah. So does Dortmund. But
yeah,
it's just a little surprising. But
yeah, because if you have 4, like I think the others, like outside of Dortmund and Bayern, there's not much. Whereas like even Man United has made knockouts in the Champions League. in that time. And we got to remember, Man United and Arsenal, I think, have won Europas. Sorry, not Arsenal. Yeah, Man United and Chelsea have won Europas in that time. And
Arsenal made it to a
final.
final.
And there's going to be an all-English. Is it going to be an all-English Europa League as well?
I don't know. We're doubling up on that. We did it when it was what is it?
It was last year that happened. Oh, sorry, the year that Liverpool won was like when that happened.
Yeah. So Liverpool, Spurs were the Champions League.
So Arsenal have lost 2-1 in the semi-final, but that was away, so they've got an away goal, and they're only 1 goal behind, so they could win. So it's potentially you could have an all-English Europa League final as well. So England would be very much on top of the coefficient without a thing, because I think
oh no, that's not surprising.
I think Spain as well. I think either Atletico or Sevilla always win the Europa League if they're not playing in the Champions League. So I think the new system, it's gonna have France is gonna have 4 people qualify for Champions League spots. But I think the activities from 2 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks by the time you listen to that.
Some amount of time.
The events happened. The clubs owned by American owners are probably not going to agree to a top tier league where they can be relegated from. It just poses too much risk, and it's something alien to their sporting culture. And this is purely from a sporting culture thing. There are definitely good and bad parts of having a closed league system, and there are advantages to the American systems, because I do watch a lot of North American sports. There's quite a few teams in those systems that I support quite strongly. That being said, I think the system used in European football is far superior.
Yeah.
There are disadvantages in the European system that are somewhat countered by the American systems, but in the long run, it's very difficult. There's so much wastage of probable talent and money on teams that do nothing.
Yeah.
Just to give an example, there's fine for a very, very good player to never win a championship because they decide to stay in the club they love and stay there. Like a Stevie Gerrard, for example. He's never won the Premier League. Sure, he's won Champions League and has a very stellar career, but, that's all he's done because he's decided to stay at his boyhood club. And you've got plenty of people like that. But the thing is, that was their personal choice.
Yes.
Whereas players who, in the North American system, don't even get a choice in the club they get to. They're drafted, literally.
Yeah.
That's the term, literally and figuratively.
Yes.
If they get into a bad situation, they may just never get another chance, or they just retire early. There is a really famous wide receiver named Calvin Ridley, who is famous. His nickname was Megatron, and basically, just explaining something about, without going too deeply into American football, he was basically one of the best wide receivers ever. He got drafted by the Detroit Lions, so he ended up just retiring when he was 29.
Yeah.
Because he just couldn't be arsed.
That is,
playing the sport he loved anymore.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that being at the Detroit Lions. Some points you'd just be like, why?
Really sorry if there are Detroit Lion fans listening and they're feeling insulted, but they're the example I'm going to use because they're the perennial underachieving franchise of the NFL. They've got decent amount of money. They're in a decently sized market. In the soccer world, if there was a club as bad as the Detroit Lions in the NFL, there would be another club in Detroit popping up to try and replace it, and go up the pyramid.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it would just never get to that point. Because Detroit would have to compete for we don't want to get relegated, so they'd actually have to compete and invest in the club. And
they'd actually have to do.
They might be a flip-flop club, one season good, one season bad, but they'd still be that, as opposed to what they are.
Yeah.
Today, a club that I think they had one of the best quarterbacks in the league who just left in the off season, and they didn't make. I think they only made one playoff appearance with them.
Yeah, if that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the sort of thing. So that's the wasted talent. Like that doesn't. And the NFL is the extreme version of that for North American sports. You rarely get that, for example, in basketball. Where because it's a more player-driven league and players are able to move around a bit more. So there are subtleties and there are things, things that make a difference within these closed systems. They all work kind of differently.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the main disadvantage of the European systems is that you'd say big clubs keep winning because they have more money and they're able to put, invest in their squads and as you keep winning, you attract more investment. So it becomes a virtuous cycle for you.
Yeah,
if
and
you keep doing.
It almost sort of turns into the big clubs in Europe into a closed shop anyway, because they get the money, they get the good players, they win everything, or they can win. So therefore they can attract the good players, which gives them more money because they get more fans, more merchandise, which means they can get more bigger players. More bigger players give them more wins. So it's not exactly like they have a lot of fear of relegation as it is anyway, or risk of relegation as it is anyway.
Well, apart from Arsenal.
Apart from Arsenal.
Big stick.
And the big
and I think Arsenal are exactly the model of the type of club an American owner wants to run. Like, I don't usually say this, but yeah, I feel bad for Arsenal. Like, I really miss the days when Arsenal were Man United's big rival and we'd play in our, every game, like, it had so much venom and spite and, like, the players really, really wanted to win against each other. And, like, there were years when United won the league and Arsenal just be like, but we did the double every year. And we'd be like, they did, And that's the sort of rivalry Manchester United and Arsenal had. Under an owner like Stan Kroenke, who is even by NFL standards considered to be a bad owner. So, like NFL, his NFL team fans don't like him.
Yeah.
And, like, he just wants Arsenal to qualify for Europe. That's it.
Yeah.
So he knows Arsenal are not getting relegated, and he only wants to do it with a certain value of money. He's basically given them, 40 million, 50 million is their transfer budget, unless they sell players.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
That's probably half of what West Ham has as a transfer budget.
I just like thinking about that and comparing to what Chelsea had this year of 200 plus million. And then, Arsenal's having to go by with just, you say 50 million at best. Plus whatever they can get from selling players. Like, it's just with Arsenal being, Chelsea and Arsenal should be reasonably equal in terms of everything. They're both big clubs, as you say. Well, traditionally big clubs.
So there's an issue with that model of ownership where a lot is dependent on the philosophy of the owner. Like Chelsea lucked out that Roman Abramovich literally fell in love with Chelsea Football Club. It's kind of known that he bought Chelsea for reasons that are kind of murky and needing to move a lot of his money from Russia into the UK and invest. And he wanted a club in London, ideally, so that he could invest. And it's one of those great football what ifs that season. And because I believe Roman Abramovich brought Chelsea in 2003. Just off the top of my head, in that 2002 season, if Newcastle had managed to finish fourth ahead of Chelsea, then Abramovich would have probably bought Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly.
And Bobby Robson would still be their manager because he's awesome.
Yeah.
And Abramovich would have just given him money, and he's like a player, and he's like a manager who's won stuff in competition. So it would be this weird alternate universe. And Chelsea were almost going bankrupt. Like, they needed to qualify for the Champions League that year. Like, they were in a lot of debt. And I think almost back then, $200 million in debt was a lot of debt. Like, Chelsea were potentially going to go the Leeds route.
Yes, no, they were. I think they were keeping afloat. But was it Ken Bates was the... Yeah,
they kept afloat by just making it to the Champions League. Like, that was going to earn them enough money to service their debt and pay their players and all this other stuff.
Yeah, no, was Ken Bates, right? That's the previous owner. Yeah. He had been paying out of pocket to to keep Chelsea afloat for the previous few seasons, like quite a number of seasons. And he was going to keep doing it, but he was clearly saying, look, I can do this until we find a new owner, but I have to sell because I can't do this indefinitely.
And he was also kind of like, for like at the point where he probably almost didn't care who he was going to sell it to. And because he then went and bought like Leeds.
Yeah.
And like they went into bankruptcy again, so close to bankruptcy, so twice.
I think he did sort of care, like a little bit of thing, but the fact that he sold to Roman means that not a lot of worrying. It was the money was always going to outsell any other considerations. But,
well, to be fair, Roman Abramovich just took on Chelsea's debt. He didn't pay any extra money on top of that. Which was like considerable. 200 million is a lot of debt to take on, and like Ken Bates was happy to be like, I have 200 million extra dollars technically now, and he was going to invest in the club. And like to an extent, Roman Abramovich, Chelsea's like a hobby.
Yes.
For him, like in the nicest way possible. Yeah, it's his big shiny car.
And I think it's turned more into that as well. Like the beginning, as you say, it was just a status symbol. I've got a football club because I'm
possible.
I was just saying because he's the big billionaire, so he needed I need a sports team. Oh look, there's an English Premier League team that's status there. It's in London as well. Chelsea, that's me.
And I'll clarify, Roman Abramovich didn't revolutionize English football by being a billionaire who bought a football club. Like there have been plenty of rich people who have bought football clubs in England. He made a difference by basically converting Chelsea into a business. Like Chelsea is as close to a high Fortune 500 corporate culture office in a football club I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like I think Thomas Tuchel has basically cracked the code of how to be a good Chelsea manager. He's like, you don't know how long I'm going to be here. He's like, they gave me an 18-month contract, and I was like, you know what? If they gave me a 4-month contract, doesn't mean they're not going to fire me anyway. 4-year contract doesn't mean they're not going to fire me anyway.
Exactly.
So why should I care? Like, all I have to do is keep performing, and I win. And like, that's how he looks. He's like, I'm not here to build a dynasty. I'm here to keep winning and like, I can be ruthless as I want in getting rid of players and bringing in new players.
Yeah, exactly.
And things like that. Because I think Chelsea also had, like, Roman Abramovich's second-hand woman, right-hand woman, is very, very good at, like, selling and buying players.
Yeah.
Chelsea are arguably the best club at buying and selling players in European football, purely because the other clubs have capitalize a lot on their brand and money to do it. Chelsea gets the best deals always, and they always get the person they want. Generally, they just always do.
Yes, generally. There's been a few seasons where
they don't get into bidding wars over players who are going to be go to other clubs, and they never get used as like a club that's put up to inflate a price for another club. It never happens to Chelsea, almost.
Yeah, you're correct. Like, there may be a little bit of grandstanding early on in the transfer window about something and thing, but when it starts to get to the bit where they need to put money on the table, the money's only on the table for players that are almost guaranteed. And it's the players that they want, and or at least on paper fit into the system and fit the gaps that are there.
And I think because Chelsea were the first to properly implement the system of having a director of football who takes care of a long-term vision and which is separate to the manager, and they have the commercial side of it run completely separately, like basically that lady whose name just escapes me, and to be honest, I would have a hard time pronouncing anyway. She just comes in when they're like, look, this is our targets, this is the 3 people, we need to get at least 2 of them, and she will get, that's it. And there's and she just gets it with the money.
Yeah.
But then she doesn't decide who they are or anything like that.
No, she just once the target's decided.
She just negotiates the money side. Yeah. And they're like, okay, and the scouting team are like, we think they're valued at this. We think that this is a good price for them. This is what we think is inexpensive, but still good,
Yeah.
Because Chelsea still pay a bit of Chelsea tax, but it's nowhere near as much as Manchester United or Manchester City tax.
No.
For buying players.
No, there's only a few times where perhaps we've had to pay a little bit too over what the player is really worth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, generally it's worth it.
Yes, I agree. So so you get the other side of the ownership model with Roman Abramovich. Obviously, Sheikh Mansour is just another level of that, and his things are less murky. He's out there to promote Abu Dhabi, promote the soft power, and that's also people, even Manchester United people who live in Manchester, acknowledge how much he invests in the local area, community outreach, and building up the area around Manchester City, which used to be not that great, into this commercial campus, which is just revitalize the city and things like that. So he, Manchester City's fans definitely think he's a very good owner, and they've probably kind of forgiven him because his reasons kind of made sense. And City were the first club to back out.
Yeah. They were the first club to back out. I was hoping Chelsea would be pretty quickly
But
behind
it was a
them.
race to see who was good. But they were both basically we're not going to stay here. We're going to leave. And Chelsea and City both had people in their board vehemently against the idea, as opposed to, I think, Spurs, Arsenal, and Manchester United, where it was kind of unanimous.
Yeah.
Or at least the people who were talking just weren't even given a voice to say what they wanted to say.
Yeah. And with Chelsea and City, it was definitely sounded like the deciding factor was the fact that the other big clubs were going and they didn't. It was a FOMO situation. The fear of missing out and the fear of
if it actually pulled off.
Yeah,
if it actually got pulled off, and City and Chelsea missed out on a chance for being a founder member with automatic membership into this ESL system, they would be we've just left billions of dollars on the table.
Yeah. And it was that fear of and the fear of the sporting side as well of suddenly not playing against United, City, and the rest and the other European lot. That was those two bits. It was that fear bit that was the deciding factor, as opposed to the others where I feel like they were pushing the agenda a bit more they actually supported the structure and the proposal. City and Chelsea to me did sound like they didn't really support it. They just got a bit antsy that if it did actually work, as you say, that they would miss out. And they're well, if it's going to work, we need to be in as founder members, so we'll jump in. And so that's why as soon as it started to have a bit shaky, they were you know what? This is too shaky. We're out again. And once they jumped, that was the catalyst for everybody else.
Once they saw the fan backlash, they were basically this is the time to leave if we're going to leave. Yeah. Be the first to leave is going to be the most beneficial. Because in the end of the day, even if it does go ahead, they'll get invited back. Yeah. It's not like they were going to go ahead without Chelsea and Manchester City. That wasn't going to happen. No. And a lot of people have pointed out the 50+1 rule in Germany as a alternative. There are many, many flaws with the 50+1 rule. Do I think it is better than having a single owner? Absolutely. Yeah. There are definitely many flaws. There's Lawn Bowls Leipzig. Look, I'm not going to explain into it. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and Google to look into. But there are loopholes one can use to exploit the system, just like Red Bull have done by buying a Lawn Bowls club. Yeah. Who just happens to have a football team. Let's say the Bundesliga.
I wonder how that happened.
And I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, I know.
That's literally what is the case. Yes. And then you've got and fan-owned teams can be badly run too. Charlton is a fan-owned team. They're struggling Championship and League Two because it's bad management at the top and bad culture at the top leads to bad decisions. Yeah. Schalke, which is one of the few clubs in the Bundesliga that's 100% fan-owned, so they don't even have the 49% owned by a corporate. Mm. And they're about to be relegated. The first time in their history, I think they were the only Bundesliga club to have never been relegated, and they're going to get relegated. Karlsruhe and Kaiserslautern, storied German Bundesliga club as well, in that same boat. And then the big elephant in the room, if you're talking about fan-owned clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid are fan-owned clubs. Yeah. Their fans actively support joining the ESL. Barcelona and Real Madrid, though, are in this precarious situation where they've taken on a lot of debt to rebuild their stadium, investing into the club. And because of COVID, refinancing those payments are hurting them.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me that those two were the last two clubs to leave. They might still be in the ESL. I don't know. Maybe the ESL is just Clásicos forever.
Oh, by the way, I looked it up. It's the European Super League still exists. It's the two Spanish clubs and two Italian clubs.
Right.
Or two Italian. So it's I think it's AC and Juventus, AC Milan and Juventus, and Barcelona and Real Madrid are still technically in the European Super League and are claiming it's going to work somehow.
With the four.
Yes.
With those four.
Well, they still claim there's going to be 20 teams and it's going to happen and they're going to make money, but...
So Spain has a rule which they introduced in the 90s to make sure these clubs were well run, because they were all fan-owned clubs. They were all what they call socios. So they were a club with members who paid subscriptions, and that money is used to finance things. As you may have gathered, that doesn't usually generate much money for clubs. So they make most of their money from endorsements, TV rights, and et cetera. Because even match day revenue is limited because a large portion of that ticket revenue goes to the socios who get a cheaper deal.
Yeah.
As one would expect. Even though they have great stadiums and whatnot, and with a lot of capacity, they don't make as much money from the match day revenue. And also match day revenue outside of England is still not that high.
Yeah.
Ticket prices are kind of capped at a certain level. Things like, so a lot of these factors play into it. From memory, there are only basically in the 90s, the Spain made a rule that the clubs had to all form limited liability companies. Basically, what Man United were before, blah blah, and a bunch of other clubs, and there are rules around shareholding and whatnot. So you couldn't have a single owner, or I think you could, because there was a billionaire who bought Granada a few years, and I think they still own them, and Malaga as well. From memory, Sheikh Mansour owns Girona because they're one of the Citigroup clubs. So it is shares, so you can buy it that. But a limited liability company, so at least their rules, they have to act like a business and like be sustainable.
Yeah.
So they went the opposite route of Germany, but they said like every socio-owned club had to show that they could run their club profitably, and if they did, they would be allowed to be grandfathered. Exist as a socio-owned club. So Real Madrid, Barcelona, Athletic Bilbao, I believe, and I think Real Valladolid are the four clubs in Spain that are all still socio-owned. From memory, those are the only four. But something in the back of my head says that Atletico Madrid are in there somewhere, but can't be sure. So the system there is very, very different. So these fan-owned clubs, they pay subscriptions, and that's how their money works. They generally, people like Florentino Perez are very good business people. Like, he's a billionaire from his property development business, and he's kind of made it by himself, so he's not terrible at the commercial side of things. That's why Real Madrid keep electing him, because he just generates all this endorsement income for the club. And he invests money wisely to get the club growing. Barcelona, one could argue, have been unlucky for the last few years and had the opposite issue, electing people who are bad at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, Barcelona were the last club in world football to put a shirt sponsor on their jersey. And like a few years before they put a shirt sponsor, they used to have a UNICEF logo on there. And they used to pay UNICEF to put that logo on. Like, they used to donate money to UNICEF and promote. So they weren't. That wasn't a sponsorship. That was like a promotion and charity they did. So they did the opposite of what every other club did.
That was always good work by Barcelona.
So that shows you how much they really needed to, how desperate things got, because they kind of sold out a lot of the club's, core values to make money and compete with Real Madrid. The second big time club to remove their shirts, to get a shirt sponsor, is Real Madrid. So there you go.
Yeah.
Those two clubs have a lot of debt issues and money issues. So they were probably not happy with the Champions League reforms because it wasn't enough. It wasn't going to generate enough money for them.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the Champions League new format is shit. Like, is that fair? Like, am I being too technical in describing it?
No, I don't feel like the new ones, from what I've read of it, doesn't really seem to be solving any of the problems.
It's just adding more clubs to it so that it makes it more likely they'll qualify for the Champions League. Okay, guys, Barcelona, even a broke Barcelona is qualifying for the Champions League.
Well, they add the legacy clubs in anyway for that. Or I think it was 4 slots get reserved for legacy clubs that don't qualify otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's basically turns it into a semi-closed shop sort of. So I guess the legacy clubs is just their list of clubs that they're afraid of almost, and just which ones don't.
Basically, though, the legacy club system is a bit more transparent. It's whichever clubs are the highest in the coefficient that haven't qualified for the Champions League.
All right, okay. So it's not a list of clubs somewhere that I was never 100% sure whether it was just 4 more that were the highest coefficient. So it could be anyone, or if they were pandering to the 12 breakaway ones a bit and saying, well, you'll have a list anyway. So if you fall out, no matter what, you'll still get in. And I'm not sure about the whole, I guess, conference system is not really the right word, but
the European Conference is something I can kind of accept it, because I think it'll mean clubs from the smaller countries are more likely to win that competition.
Yeah.
At least because they get more slots there. But as I looked at it more and more, the European Conference League, like at the moment, like England has 7 slots. So let's just say they finished exactly the way it is. Chelsea and the FA Cup, when it comes to European spots, are kind of irrelevant because Leicester and City, if the current thing were to end the way it is, Leicester and City would qualify for the Champions League anyway.
And it's probably, if they get, 6 or 7 slots, I think it's going to be much less relevant going forward.
Yeah.
Because somewhere in the top 7 is probably going to be the FA Cup and the League Cup winner anyway.
And also, the Champions League is not going to generate an extra UCL spot for them because both teams have automatically qualified both have qualified through their country system. So it's nice and clean. The top 4 is top 4. So unless Chelsea win the Champions League and fall out of the top 4, then you've got 5 teams. Assuming the scenario currently stays the same, then you've got West Ham, Spurs taking the Europa League spots, and Liverpool would go to the ECL spot. And let's be honest, the ECL, immediately Liverpool becomes a favorite to win the ECL at that point.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're much superior to the team, with all due respect, to whichever team is going to finish 7th in Spain or Italy, or finish 6th in Germany.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, 7th in Germany, says it's the top 4 all get 7 spots. And whoever's coming 6th in France or Portugal, they're not going to compete with Liverpool.
Yeah.
So thus it becomes a thing. But because Liverpool get that legacy spot, because they were they're one of the top clubs in the coefficient, and they didn't qualify for the Champions League, they're not in the ECL.
Yeah.
And England wouldn't have a club that makes it more likely that a smaller club will win the European Conference League. So a lot of the big clubs were immediately looking, going, no, Liverpool's going to win this competition hands down.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because they're in the coefficient and they may get into a legacy spot for the Champions League. So it's kind of needed for the reforms they're doing. As much as I dislike it, it's kind of needed if they want the ECL to actually be a thing, a European trophy that the countries outside the top 5 can regularly vie for.
Yeah, exactly. It gives gives that a bit more meaning, as you're saying, because
Yeah.
you have clubs that can actually compete as opposed to one of the big countries, just unlucky club being there and being like, oh well, I guess we're winning that competition this year.
As I'm just looking at the Serie A just to compare, if it were to finish today the way it is, Roma would be the 7th place club. Mourinho's Roma. We'll get into that maybe a little bit. But Roma are in like 14th place in that coefficient. So they're also likely to get a legacy slot.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of these clubs, and, I think the system is if they get a legacy slot, they will lose out, that country loses out on an ECL slot, because that's only fair.
Yeah. That does seem fair. But otherwise it's...
Otherwise, even like a club, like if the 8th place club were to now take the Everton, they're going to win the ECL. Come on.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I mean, am I wrong here? Like, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. You're fully correct. Like, a little bit more closer, but still.
But, like, at the end of the day, how is this better than the old system? Like, it makes it better for some of the clubs when they're having a down season. It really only benefits the English clubs, if you think about it.
Yeah.
They're the country with the most number of clubs that are probably, like Spurs are probably another team that are probably going to get a legacy slot.
Yeah.
Because they're in that, they're in the top 20 at least of the, they're 15th in that. Heck, Arsenal are 10th.
Yeah.
So Arsenal are going to get a legacy slot.
Yeah.
That tells you what's wrong with the system. So basically, like, there's all these and I think, actually, no, to be fair, I mean, we have to think, I might have to relook at what qualifies for these legacy slots, because I feel like in my head, I can't see it being anything but at least 2 English teams, and I'm like, they're not going to just have 6 teams in the Champions League from England. Like,
no, it's less than that. So what is it? So the 4th extra slots, one of the additional places go to the club ranked 3rd in the Championship of the Association and 5th position in the UEFA thing, so they get an extra 1, I suppose. Plot 2, another will be awarded to a domestic champion by extending from 4 to 5 the number of clubs qualifying via the so-called Champions Path.
Yeah.
And slots 3 and 4 awarded to the 2 clubs with the highest club coefficients that have not qualified automatically for Champions League stage, but have qualified either for the Champions League qualification stage or the Europa League, the Europa Conference League. So they do a bit there. You have to still make it to one of the other Europe ones, and then you just get promoted up because you're high enough.
So even so, in this scenario, it's still Spurs and Liverpool because they've qualified for.
Yeah.
So they would still get like promoted to the Champions League because they're qualifying for an ECL or an So Arsenal are out, so that's fair. Like I accept that because they didn't qualify for Europe. But like Liverpool and Spurs would still get a legacy slot in this system.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't see anything in here that limits. They don't talk about any limit for per country in it. So I don't know if they changed that.
And if there's 4 of them, like you're saying, and I believe you, just that, then AS Roma get one of the others probably, or one of the whoever will finish 5th. Because AS Roma have that legacy. Because the other clubs, ironically, Roma are ahead of clubs like AC Milan and I think Inter as well. Because they've been playing in the Champions League for the past few years, and they're even potentially ahead of Napoli. Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, that would, if you take the current coefficients, it'd be 3rd place in the France League. Whatever the Champions Path is. So whoever's missing out based on the Champions Path, which I'm not 100% sure how that works.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, which is, you're right, 3rd place in both France and also Portugal will make it to the
well, that must mean
the Champions League.
Okay.
And they've got 2 Europa League slots and a Conference League slot each.
Oh, yeah.
In France.
Yeah, no, the same process works through the next 2 down as well. So the Europa League and the Conference League, they get the same structure works. So you just add in extra people as you need as you go down.
So it's basically, because is it based on the coefficient of the club that this legacy slot could go to?
Yeah, the 2 legacy slots are the highest club coefficients. So those 4
so the
to 1
legacy slots are literally just the highest club coefficient. So it would literally be Liverpool as at the moment, if that were the case, and Roma.
Yeah. So the 2 highest that don't make it in any other way. They just add in. Get added in.
Because like Arsenal aren't qualifying for Europe, so we can forget them. Yeah, so... And if Arsenal win the Europa League, they're in the Champions League anyway, so that's a moot point.
Yeah.
And so Liverpool are pretty much guaranteed a Champions League if the Swiss model was adopted next season, which it's not. So you're Liverpool, you're not escaping playing the first season of the European Conference League.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, Liverpool.
Sorry, guys.
You go play it with them.
The trophy you didn't want to get.
It'd be funnier if they don't get it.
Yes, I agree. It'd be funnier for me if they needed to win it to qualify for the Europa League because they're out of the Europa League again.
That would be the funniest, actually.
Yeah, because that would be really funny. But yeah, the Liverpool and Roma, just unless, because Spurs are not going any further in Europe this season, so they're not going up.
No.
But I don't know how, because I don't know what date the coefficient they take it from, because Roma hasn't, because Spurs were in a Champions League final a couple of years ago, and Roma haven't been in one, and I think the positions are slightly good, but Roma were in a semi-final for the Europa League this year. Yeah, so Roma is only marginally behind the Spurs. I think they're on equal points. There's some sort of point differential that's been used to separate them. So you could end up with a thing where the 2 legacy slots would go to Spurs and Liverpool, unless they set a maximum of only 5 teams can play from one country. And I think that's a rule that's been there before. Like, this is not like... And that makes sense to me. So if Arsenal were to beat United, forget legacy slots. Liverpool, you're in the Conference League. And Spurs, you're out of here as well. And it would go to Roma and whoever is the next highest club that looks like my maths are telling me it's either going to be Lyon or Napoli. And even then, like, I'm looking at this, Lyon, Napoli, Roma, they're clubs that are going to win the Conference League if they don't get that legacy slot. Like, I can't see them lose to clubs from Portugal or Holland, and because that's their European spot, and it's what's guaranteeing them probably a spot in the Europa League, they're going to go hard and try and win it.
Exactly. And they're good enough to win that European Conference League, you would think. And it's because they decided that it was better to focus on the French league and try qualify that way.
I know this would benefit Liverpool, but I feel like the top 5 leagues should just have they should just have no slots in the ECL. That one slot they have in the ECL should just be in the Europa League. But I guess that would mean they don't generate as much money.
Yeah.
For that competition. Like, I've suddenly realized why they didn't do this.
Money. It comes down to why did they do that? Oh, that's right, money.
Yeah.
Need some money.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was actually the very interesting discussion I had with a workmate who was very upset about the European Super League, and I was like, yeah, no, it's a bad idea, but money, so what are you going to do? And he's like, yeah, no, but money's bad. Like, it needs to be the purity of the game and all the rest. Like, yeah, but the owners say money. Like, so you have to look at it and say, if there's enough driving force for them to go through it, and they did go through and sign it all up, then that money that they're looking at is significant money. So it's always going to be a driving force for them. They're going to want something like this because they want that money.
Yeah, they're always going to do as much as possible to try and get that extra $1 billion. You know, like it looked like they were saying it was what, 300 million as a joining reward
for each of the founding clubs.
Yeah.
Which so that's, you look at Spurs and Arsenal. That's two reasons why they're all jumping in.
Yeah, and Real Madrid and Barcelona are like, yes, please, that's helping finance our stadium. Oh, sorry, Chelsea and Man City are like, pocket change. Like,
we just spent that.
300 million, okay, whatever, nice.
What did you do, shake the couch?
I mean, putting that aside, like the other things Fiorentina Perez brings up, like people aren't watching football on TV and not going. Dude, making the game shorter is not gonna help. Like, I am all for trying out new things to make the game more accessible to the modern fan.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we have to have that, but you haven't actually tried to make it affordable for the modern fan to afford your product. And now you're saying you're going to give them less of it. Like, saying that they don't want to spend 1.5 hours at a football game when they're more than happy to spend 3 hours watching the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that doesn't make sense. And, like, you guys cost way more than a movie ticket. Movie tickets are expensive. Everybody bitches and moans about them. Everybody's going to watch the Avengers.
Yeah.
There's a reason they made $2 billion. Like,
yeah.
And look, the cinema industry are having the same problems as you, and they're not making their movies smaller.
No.
To try and get fans in. They're making them spectacles and, like, you know.
Yeah.
Making them long. And, like, if it was a case that we didn't want to if the younger generation didn't want to spend time watching stuff, and I can sort of get that, but, like, they like binging Netflix shows, so that shows they like to sit down and absorb a long thing. And they like, when they're watching YouTube, yes, they go through multiple times, but that's like a thing of they're binging YouTube.
Yeah. It's YouTube they're consuming, not the individual videos.
Not the individual videos. So your football were affordable, like, even like if football was as affordable as it is as a Spark Sport subscription just for football, by the way, I'm not saying everything Spark Sport gives you in Europe. Like, you could just pay, you got a pass and you basically got to pick maybe you got European football for free. National teams, all Euros and FIFA stuff for free, included, not free, but included in the pass, and you got to pick like to maybe 1 or 2 leagues, and each league you can add on with extra money. Or even if you just went, look, you could get all the European, can get the Euros and the World Cup as like a season pass, like a paper, like they did with the Rugby World Cup. So those are like, pay an extra $20 and you get all the games, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like every league pass costs you like, something like $5 a month. People happily pay that.
Oh, easily. I mean, that's basically the model for the NFL pass and NBA pass and stuff like that in America, right? Yeah. Yeah, we have all the games.
Yeah, maybe $10 a month if you want to do it that way. But if everybody would happily pay $10 a month for a Premier League pass, people who watch, who are into English football would do that. Yeah. And lots of people of that age group they're trying to target would go, I'll try it.
Yeah,
sure. Oh, you're giving a discount of like $30. You do it for 6 months to get us in. Yeah, we'll do it, and we'll check it out. Oh, then it's worth $10 a month. If it's not, they're like, okay, you're competing with Netflix.
Yeah.
You're competing with YouTube, which is free if you're not paying for YouTube Red.
Yeah, exactly.
And the elephant in the room, you're competing against pirates.
Yeah. That is the thing. Like, you've got to, if you're providing streaming service, you're competing against the pirates, which means it's got to be nice and simple to use. Not horrendously expensive, but that people feel like, I'm getting the value for money, and it's nice and easy. It's just there. I don't have to worry about all the crap coming from having to download illegal streams or whatever.
$80 a month for a product where you're not using 90% of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So really, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to ownership models. And they have their ups and downs, and I think... And also, closed league versus open league, both issues have their problems, even though I'm explaining what my biases are. And there are reasons why I have these biases.
Yeah.
So it's a complicated issue. I think that calms it down. But yeah, on a side note, go the fans who postponed that game against Liverpool.
Yeah, throw that.
But yeah, I think that's all we have time for. Sure, we'd love to hear anyone's comments on this, because I think it's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Either come into chat, Facebook, wherever you want to leave your comments. I think there's definitely a discussion to be had for this.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for listening, and look forward to hearing from you all next time. Or listening in next time.
See you next time.